Yeah, for some reason I'm not getting a lot of Wi-Fi or internet at all. I don't know if a lot of people like to log in at 6 o'clock, but I am not getting any kind of signal here whatsoever. Let's try this again. That's refreshing. And looks like you guys are consistently there. In the meantime, I'm gonna clean some stuff up. Hopefully I can get the comments going and should be able to get a little bit of work done, hopefully, but no promises. Oh, you're from Venice Beach, California. Nice to meet you. I'm from now the high desert, California. So we're not too far from each other. Good to see that we got some people out in California. I always get a lot of people from the East Coast or the Midwest, and I like to talk to them. But either way, it's always nice to see people from like your general area. That way you have people at least they're in your own time zone. And why am I not getting signal to the laptop? I'm gonna move it. Probably because I have so much metal here. Not really working as an antenna. Let's try that again. Well, that's pretty bad. The live stream's already going to a pretty poor direction today because I'm going to have a hard time looking at the comments. Maybe I could switch the angle of the camera. Maybe just work on it like this instead. Or I'll just flip the camera. Make it easy for myself. There we go. Okay. Then I can actually see what's going on. Daniel White, what's up? I'm doing good. I'm doing good. Just been really busy. Transfer slots, adjustments, anything you can share. The transfer slots on a typical Holley, they pretty much all work the same. I've seen where they would actually drill these out, and instead of adding an idle feed restrictor to the main body, they add them to the base plate. But I haven't attempted that myself. I always find it way easier to just use just modify the metering blocks instead. In fact, I just modified the metering block off of my 600, the standard 1850, and I found that what is this? A 632 National Chorus thread will fit exactly. For example, this is a vacuum secondary for a 68, 790. I think this is a 750 rear metering block. So I found that the 632nd national course actually fits like right inside this little hole up on top, where you would go ahead and install your adjustable idle feed restrictors. So instead of modifying the base plate, I just found it a lot easier to just go ahead and add the idle feed restrictors over here. Have I ever come across a warped carb? I have a feeling my 2245 Holley is warped, as it's still leaking after changing the gaskets. I guess it would really depend on where it's leaking. If it's leaking on the gasket surface, it might be warped. A lot of factory Holleys come warped from the factory. I'll show you on this one that I have right here that I've already sanded down. And I'll show you guys with the different main body that I have. I'll just grab a piece of sandpaper and I'll show you. A lot of these already come warped. So let me finish showing you guys this. So let's, yeah. So I haven't drilled it at all. I just ran the 6/32 tap, the national course thread. And it's already got the threads ready to go. So then you can just take a 6/32. Let's see, what do I got? What do I have that's 6/32? Any one of these is 6/32. So this is a brass set screw, 6/32 national course thread. And after you don't have to drill it, you just cut the threads for it, and boom, you've got an adjustable idle feed restrictor. Done. You can't even tell anything's going on, and they're just chilling right there. You just have to make sure you put it in deep enough so it doesn't affect anything. And then you've also got to go ahead and drill out the factory idle feed restrictors. And this one, they're going to be right here if they weren't already up here. So you want to go ahead and drill this out. The drill bit that I used to drill those ones out, let's see, which one was it? It was this one. Either the 5/64ths or where is the other one? I use this one to chamfer the entrance in case you need a little bit more room. This one is a 13/64ths to chamfer the edge of the brass plugs. And then the one I use to drill inside, it was 1/8. 1/8 was the one that you used to drill right here. So if you want to tune up your transition on your stock Holley, you go ahead and drill out your stock idle feed restrictors, the little brass plugs that are here, drill them out about 1/4 of an inch down, just enough to open up the hole. Then you just run a 6/32 tap into here, and then just get yourself a set of brass set screws, and you can go ahead and run them down and feed your idle feed restrictors with whatever you need. I just did this mod to my 600, because it was running way too rich in the transition circuit, and so I went from a 32 that came factory on that carb to a 28, and it ran way better. So moving back to the warped main bodies question. So we have, this is a factory 1850. This is a 600 as well, and this had kind of a warped gasket surface right here. So I've already gone through and I've taken some 80 grit sandpaper on a sanding block, and I just went through and I gave this thing a nice sand, perfectly straight, because what will happen is around the casting for the power valve and along the edges, it ends up getting lower I don't know if that's just a problem with the castings, or if it's some sort of other issue. But this, you end up getting a high spot here and a high spot there. Depending on how bad the casting is, you're gonna have to go ahead and just keep going. Just go. Basically, some people call it a fly cut. You just go through and cut this straight across, and you should be good to go. Then you shouldn't have any problems. The metering blocks, when you install them, when you install the big flat gasket, wherever you are, you install a flat gasket. This should take up any irregularities in the main body. So when you install them right here, even if it's a little warped, you should be okay. A lot of times the leaks come from the caps that are on top of the metering blocks, and so you'll have them weep, and because you can't really see them because of the way the carburetor is shaped, they'll weep, they'll come out through here, and then they'll run along the side, and it'll look like the metering block is leaking when it's actually the top caps. Those are pretty cheap online. You just, for these, you could just make a hole in them and then pull them out with a screwdriver and then punch some new ones in here with a little bit of Loctite, and you should be good to go. There's no really good way to pull these out without ruining them. So if you are having leaks, that's where I would look. Another common area where people mistake carburetor leaks from is on the float bowls with the accelerator pump. One of the back bolts will start leaking on the accelerator pump. So your bowl is like this. Your accelerator pump's normally right here. Well, if it's like this, let's say this is your accelerator pump, you'll have one of the back bolts leaking right here, and it'll just start dripping, or it'll run along the side of the carburetor, and it'll look like your metering block's leaking. But you actually either just got to tighten up the accelerator pump housing, or you've got to go ahead and install a new diaphragm for the accelerator pump. And that'll usually take care of the leaking issues. I believe Chevy Rel had a question. Let me look at that real quick. You're very welcome, Ollie the Retro Kid. Much obliged. Let's see. Do you have to get pilot bearings? Do you have to get pilot bearings out LS to hook up a 400 trans? Let's see. It really depends, because some flex plates require a spacer, and a lot of times the spacer will have enough hole in the middle for you to be able to separate yourself far enough, so even if you had a pilot bearing, you would have been able to avoid any kind of contact. There's other flex plates that are kind of like a concave to it, where you bolt them up, and so your mating surface is here, but the gears are over here. In which case your torque converter might hit. A lot of times, it just really depends, because if you're using the spacer, it should have like the hole in the middle. It should fit the middle of your torque converter fine. And if there's something in there, you might not be able to get it through. If you have the ability to pull it out, I would do so, just in case, because you don't want to be doing things twice. I'm almost positive you do have to remove it, but it really depends on the flywheel that you're going to end up using, or the flex plate that you end up using. You're going to have a lot of issues. Use a grease gun to take out the pilot bearing. Just squirt grease on the inside and blow the bear in. I've seen that. I've also people use bread. People take like a loaf of bread, and they'll just keep stuffing wet bread inside the hole, and then they'll just keep going and going and going. I've done that before, not with wet bread, but I've done it with grease, where I would take grease and just fill up the pilot bearing, take a socket that matches the hole, and then put an extension to block the hole for the socket, and then make sure the back of the socket is facing inside. Like, for example, I'll run an extension through this on this side, on the hex side, and then on the square drive side, that'll be facing the middle of the pilot bearing. I'll hit it with the hammer. It'll compress the grease, and it'll pull the bearing out. I did that with my 3VZE a while back when it was a manual engine, and I had to install it on an automatic, and I could pull the pilot bearing out. That was an easy way to do that. And then if I have the ability to, I have welded a nut to the pilot bearing and then just run a slide hammer on it, and that usually gets it out as well. So I've done it in two different ways. They both work. It just depends on what you feel like doing for yourself. Yeah, so I'm looking for all the pieces to finish my 50cc accelerator pump conversion on the 600. So I've got the arm. I do need the diaphragm housing, and I believe I have a diaphragm housing somewhere in this box over here. Actually, I gotta hook up my charger. So let's hook up my charger. Actually, I don't know where the charger is. Maybe I didn't grab my charger. Yeah, I actually probably didn't grab my phone charger. Whoops. So, okay. So I have a 50cc accelerator pump diaphragm right here. So you can tell that it's significantly bigger. Let's see, I had a regular 30cc around here. Nope, I put it away. Yeah, I put it away. And then just to compare the two, I've got a 30cc arm right here and a 50cc arm. So you can see that the 31 is a lot smaller than the 50cc one. And the reason for that is because it's so much volume inside. Sometimes you'll struggle to get all the fluid out in time if the squirter is like really small. So if you're already accelerated, you want the spring to take in the extra load. But if you install, let's say, one of these and it's not strong enough to push it all the way down, like this one's, not only is it bigger, it also looks like it's a little longer, so it gives you a little bit more adjustment, and it adds this section on top to make sure it straightens out the shaft as it's going up. If you have this and the volume is just too much for the rest of the carburetor, what you'll end up doing is this will probably either bend or it'll just contract and it won't have enough pressure to put it back down, because the spring on this one is significantly heavier duty and bigger than the spring on this one. So to complete the 50cc conversion, I haven't done a 50cc with a 30cc arm. Usually when you buy the kits, it comes with the 50cc arm like this one. So I'll be sandblasting this, powder coating this, and then installing it on the base plate. Let's see, what do I got? Let's see, what do you guys say? What's your opinion on those Brawler carburetors? I get that question asked a lot. I'll tell you 1 second. Let me read what Peter Androli has to say. Hi, Brisbane, Australia. Oh, nice, from the other side of the world. What's your thought on the aluminum housing body Holley Carbs? Are they as long-lasting and hassle-free? So I'm going to tackle those two questions at the same time. What do I think about the Brawler Carbs, and what do I think about aluminum carbs in general? So a lot of the new Brawler carbs are aluminum. I don't think any of them have zinc bodies, and it's not a bad thing. This, as far as I know, this is an aluminum casting. This is a billet aluminum on the Demons, and this was a 575 gasoline carb, and then we have the, where is it? The 650 alcohol methanol carb main body right here. And with both types of fuels, you've been able to, or these main bodies have been able to withstand most of the corrosion. Either way, most carburetors in like heavier duty service end up getting really pitted on the inside, depending on the types of fuel. This one has a little bit of wear on the inside. Before I finish assembling this, I'm going to want to give this a nice sand, just to make sure everything is nice and square, make sure everything's a nice even surface. This one's basically brand new. There's nothing wrong with it at all. And this was sitting assembled for a long time, so you are going to get a little bit of pitting. But pitting isn't just on the aluminum body carbs. You also have a lot of the older zinc body carbs that also get deteriorated. I think a lot of people are afraid of the aluminum bodies because they think that with like ethanol gas, it's gonna eat away at the aluminum, or the aluminum's gonna come apart. And frankly, I haven't seen any issues like that myself. I have played with the Brawler Carbs, and I've played with like the Street Avengers, and we do have a 750 that I bring it. I don't know if I brought the 750. I have a 750 that's aluminum. No, it's not here. And I do tend to like the aluminum 750s just because they're just so light. And if it's maybe it's a 600 or a 650 aluminum carb, and it's the vacuum secondary type for 4160 without the dual feed, and it'll just have like the two bowls just hanging out right here. I love those carbs. They're so light. They're so easy to install, take off, and they're only a couple pounds. So I really like the aluminum carbs. I don't have a lot of hate for them. Let's see. Yeah, the Brawler Carbs, they fall into the same category. I have one of you guys sent me a message complaining about your 750. It was a 750 Brawler Carb, mechanical secondaries, and he wanted it on a 5.3 liter. And basically, he wanted this for like a street strip application. It was going on a donk, actually. So it was like I forgot if it was a Grand National or an Oldsmobile. And it was a carburetor 5.3, and he said that it was just running super rich and it couldn't get it to run right. He wasn't running an AFR gauge, so I don't know exactly why and how the carburetor was running rich, or where in the power band, but he was saying it was running rich, so it was kind of difficult to decide. But I've also seen other people open up the Brawler Carbs, and they've actually had really good luck. The Brawler Carbs are really nice because they're basically pretty much 100% tunable from the factory. So you have the adjustable air bleeds. I don't know if the metering blocks are already machined to accept replaceable idle feed restrictors or power valve restrictors, but if they're not, I already showed you guys earlier in the stream that you guys can just drill this, not drill it out. You could just, I'll show you guys again. There's more people in the stream now, so I'm going to show you guys again. If you take a 630 seconds national course tap, and this one is a, 630 seconds national course tap, and you take your stock metering block, doesn't matter, primary, secondary metering block. Basically, they all have the same hole size that feeds into your idle feed restrictor. So basically, you would take your idle feed restrictor that's in here from the factory, you drill it out. I believe it's a 1/8 drill bit, and then I've already did this one right now, so I'm going to do the other side. The other side's a perfect fit for the 630 seconds, and what you do is you just go ahead and you just run it in by hand, and then you take the tool and you run it in with the tool, and it shouldn't take any kind of extra force. You probably want to use a little bit of lube on it just so you don't wear out the tap, and it'll just go through and it'll cleanly cut the threads, and you should be able to just go ahead and modify your idle restrictors. I don't know if the Brawler Carbs have that tunability aspect to it. I assume they do, because I don't know why they would give you idle feed restrictors, or adjustable idle bleeds, but they wouldn't give you adjustable idle feed restrictors, which is arguably a little bit more important. So I just ran it. There we go. Just ran it to the bottom, pulled it back out cleanly and carefully. And there we go. You got some threads. So I'm just going to grab a 630 seconds brass set screw. The many that I have for my other adjustable metering blocks. Doesn't matter what size, or I mean, it matters what size, but it doesn't matter what size orifice it is. Let's see, where is it? This one. I wish my fingers weren't so chubby. I'd be able to do this a lot more easier. So we can actually take this. Let's see. I'm going to go ahead and move the camera so you guys can see. So, Okay, so I've already drilled out right here the idle feed restrictor right there. So watch, or I didn't drill it out. I already tapped it. So I'm just gonna go ahead and run this in. See if the camera will focus. And there we go. Adjustable idle feed restrictors in less than 5 minutes. I don't know if it's really hard to see in the camera because of the way the brass doesn't glow. But right there, you see that brown golden thing? That is the new adjustable idle feed restrictor. I marked an S on this metering block because this is a vacuum. This is a secondary metering block without a power valve. I don't think really needed to write the S on there, but we wrote an S anyway. And I'm gonna go ahead and pull this back out. I'm gonna show you guys that I already did it to the other side as well. And it basically does no damage. It doesn't negatively affect anything. You just have to make sure you take a measurement of your idle feed restrictors before you pull them out. That way you know what size to move up or down. And if you have to go up in idle feed restrictor, then it's actually easier just to drill out your factory ones. But if you got to go down in size like I had to, it's easier just to drill out the feeds and run a tap and install the new brass set screw. So as you guys can see, on the other side as well, I just installed the other adjustable idle feed restrictor fairly easily. Yeah, so this metering block's pretty much good to go. The only other modification that you would want to do is the power valve restrictor channel. Probably won't do that right now because it does get messy and I do need to focus a little bit more. Peter, James, you're welcome. What product do you use to soak your carbs and to make them look like you can get them clean? Honestly, I haven't really messed with any types of cleaners. I've seen people use a variety of different things. The one that I see most often used would be a machine called an ultrasonic cleaner. And what it does, it basically super vibrates this liquid, and the liquid kind of like brushes up against the rest of the carburetor, and it takes off all the junk, and it basically like super cleans your parts, makes them really easy to touch up and clean up after that. But as for me in general, I don't really have anything to clean them up. I don't really do any kind of show carburetors or anything that requires any kind of like good looking carburetors. Like I powder coated this one, and when I powder coat them, I do sandblast them. So like this one's like a powder coated flat black, and then I went ahead and I sanded this down with a sanding block and a couple steps of sandpaper, and I did the same thing to the back, and then but I didn't do anything here. This is like the factory finish on for the Holley vacuum secondary, the 460. So I don't do much. I just cover up the boosters when I do um, the boosters and the whatchamacallit, the boosters and the air bleeds. I do cover up, and I do remove the accelerator pump nozzle so I don't plug any of the passages. You really don't want to do that, but that's as clean as I can pretty much get them. I can't do a lot of super cleaning. It looks like my phone's gonna die. Let me go grab my cable real quick. In the meantime, just send me some questions so I can go ahead and answer them for you guys when I get back. It'll probably take me like 30 seconds. Give me 30 seconds, and I'm gonna go grab my charging cable. Okay, I grabbed my charging cable. How many of you guys did I lose? One. I lost one of you guys. Okay. Just want to make this, I lost two of you guys. I do want to make this stream a little bit longer, so I only had 4% left. Let's see, what would you guys send me in the meantime? You would like to use a chem tool, Berryman's. That's been like the staple for a lot of people. A lot of people really like that chemical. It seems to work quite a bit. I've tried it, and I didn't really get that great of results, honestly, with the Berryman's. The let's see, where is one that I did use it on? There's a 650 I used to daily on my LS. So this was in a tub of carb cleaner, and it really didn't take off any of the smudges. Like, I've seen people use the machines and they've been able to get a nice super clean finish. And I don't know if I'm just doing it wrong, but I haven't been able to get any type of clean results using like the chem dip. I've also seen people use like easy off oven cleaner as well. I just leave it alone. I leave the coated finish that comes on these factory Holleys. I just kind of leave it alone since it's not for show. If it was for show, I'd probably send out the main body to a couple different people. Probably one guy's name, his name is Drew Polanowski. I don't know. He's on Instagram or the Holley Carburetor Facebook group. His name is Drew, and he basically does full-on restorations on carburetors, and his carburetors come absolutely beautiful. So if you were going to do like a custom build and you really wanted your carburetor to be either factory correct or any kind of like specific color, you would send it to him, and he would go through and blast it, and then he would recoat it. He'd remove the boosters, install brand new boosters and everything, and get it all good to go. So if I ever wanted to do like a factory, like a rebuild, I'd probably send it out to him, get it all redone. But for me, personal use, like you guys can see, it's a 650 main body, and it's using a 600 front metering block, front metering block. It's using a, let's see, what is this using? A 3310 rear metering block, and it's using a cathedral style bowl on the back that I powder coated, and it's using the stock Holley one that doesn't belong to this one. So this one's like a gray finish. This is kind of like a yellow finish. So I'm using like 3 or 4 different styles. Whatever works for me just kind of works. Let's see. I did see a comment. Well, see, I don't have the ultrasonic cleaner because that machine is entirely too expensive, but what I use is a rock shaker, and I put the can on that it shakes the fluid, like basically a washing machine. Okay, I haven't tried that myself. Normally how I've done it is I'll get like a bowl or like some sort of tray. I'll put my carburetor parts in there. I'll get like an old toothbrush, and I'll pour the liquid in there, and then I'll just start scrubbing by hand. But it gets it okay, but it doesn't really last that long. Like, it still gets pretty dirty. So I don't really get much of a benefit from that myself. But if you do have really good results on that, go ahead and send me pictures of it. If you guys ever want to get in touch with me, you guys can always send me messages on my Instagram at the Night Renter on Instagram, and you guys can go ahead and send me pictures, or if you guys have questions, you guys could always send me questions there as well. I always answer you guys' questions all the time. I do dedicate an hour or 2 of my day answering questions and stuff, answering comments, and trying to get everybody up to speed on the stuff that I'm doing. And I always like to know what you guys are up to as well, so that way when I make videos, I make sure to include certain bits of information that become really useful to some of you guys that a lot of people like to omit when they're talking about carburetors. Um, so I do try to tailor my carburetor content around what you guys are asking me. So I'm probably actually gonna make a video on the Brawler carburetors just to expand on what because there's like 5 people have already asked me what I think about the Brawlers. They seem to be like a really good bang for your buck. But because I've never ran them personally, I've only handled them, I've only seen them in my hands. They are made by Holley as far as I know, so it should be good. Rock shaker, brilliant. Yeah, I mean, I really want to see how it turns out. So if you guys you show me the before and after and then what you ended up using, I might end up getting the whole system for myself and just doing it myself. That'd be pretty cool. I've also seen, I've seen people use, and Harbor Freight, they have that little bead. It's not a blaster, it's like a paint stripper. You put in your parts, you like put them in like this little plastic container, and I think it's a vibrator. I think that's what they call it, or a tumbler. So they'll shake all the parts, and then it'll pull the finish off of whatever it's in there, and then you can coat them with whatever you want. So I've seen that as well. Yeah, good. Yeah, that'll be good if you send me the information for the rock shaker. I'd love to try it out. The Brawler is awesome. I have a 600 DP, love it. Yeah, I wish I could try it. I wish I had one to just try, mess with. I don't know what the tuning's like out of the box. I don't know if they run too rich. I don't know if they run too lean. I know the factory's Hollies like to run lean in the transition, but rich everywhere else. So I don't know how the Brawler is, especially because it does have the adjustable air bleeds. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I think when you buy them brand new, it'll come with like a couple extra air bleeds. But I could be wrong. I might have just heard that somewhere. So do correct me if that is not correct. Yeah, it's a little difficult answering comments on my phone since I can't get my Wi-Fi working on right here at my house. For whatever reason, I'm not getting Wi-Fi signal, so I just have to do everything through my phone. It's kind of a pain just because the screen's so small and I have it pointed down here on my workbench. So it is a little bit difficult. What I'm gonna have to try to do, probably not right now, but eventually, is called I'm gonna have to find a way to pull this broken bolt out so I can rethread it and use it. Let's see. What did that say? It's called the rock tumbler. I just called the rock shaker. Oh, okay. You call it the rock shaker. So it is a tumbler. Yeah, so it might be similar. I've never used it myself. I've seen them at Harbor Freight. I want to say they're like $60, 60 or $80. You might even be able to get them cheaper on Amazon. But if you do try it, do let me know. I am very curious. One thing I can tell you guys is that I actually attempted a repair on this base plate. So basically, I got this kit from. Let's see, where did I buy this kit from? Where is the kit? Oh, it's right here. I bought this kit from Carb Junkies, and it comes with a reamer and it comes with these brass inserts. And what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to take a drill like this one, and it comes with this reamer. This reamer is supposed to go through your base plate, and it's supposed to go ahead and basically drill out. That's okay, bro. It's only about 30-second lag. Okay, so there is a little bit of lag. That's annoying for me, but as long as you guys can watch it, I'm happy. But anyway, so you take a base plate and you take this drill, and it's got like these reverse cut blades that you're supposed to run the whole drill in reverse. So you run the whole thing in reverse, and it's supposed to cut out exactly enough material for you to be able to hammer in these new brass bushings. So these new brass bushings are supposed to take in the slack for when you have like older carburetors and they have like way too much play, and it's always on the primary side, primary driver side front. That's the hole you always have issues with when you're trying to tune your carburetor, because on the passenger side there's not much movement at all. It's all in the primary side. So what this tool I bought, I haven't been able to run the base plate because I haven't had time to finish it. But when I do finish it, I need to find a good way to install these without damaging the end of it. So I did damage the end. I'm going to have to go through and clearance it so the rods can easily fit through here without having to gouge it or have it stick, because you don't want it to stick. But if this is a good solution with fixing old base plates, then I'm all ears. I'd be super happy to just do that to a bunch of my older base plates that I have. I'm wondering if I can do that on stream. What do I got? If I have a 750 that I could use, or that I can rebuild on stream, that'd be pretty cool. Let's see, but unfortunately most of these are 600s. This is a 750. Yeah. So I'll try to salvage the parts off of this broken 750. So basically, when you take these apart, you're supposed to take a Dremel tool first, or some sort of a sander, or maybe a file. You got to file down the ends of these bolts, because if you try to just go ahead and turn them out by hand, what you're going to do is you're going to get to the end of the thread's going to be wider than the hole, and you're going to snap the bolt inside because it's only brass. So the brass is designed to crush when you install it, basically one-time use. So what you're supposed to do, I got my Dremel tool right here, and I'm going to show you guys right now what I do. I just go through and I clean up the ends. So I'm going to start off with that one. I just trimmed off the top edge. You don't need to trim off much. You just need to trim off enough to make sure you can get the little bolts out, the little screws out, without damaging anything else. And this is the wrong screwdriver. This is also the wrong screwdriver. Where is my correct screwdriver? I think it's in here, actually. So where is the screwdriver? Screwdriver attachment. Not here. That's weird. Where did all my screwdrivers go? I just bought a pack too. And these are too small. Oh yeah, this will work. This will work. It's because this one's crushed in. It's got like a little lip on it. There we go. Oh, this is tight. This is tight. Okay, there we go. So you just go through and you look at it as you're removing the screw, and if it gets caught up on anywhere, that's when you back it back in and you start to remove it. So this one I had no issues removing it. It just came out like butter. No problems. And you guys can see right here, I'll move the camera back so you guys can actually see what I'm doing. Do I have more comments? I haven't checked. Yeah. So this is the screw that I just removed. Right. can't really see. Camera won't focus. But there's like the dark part right here, and then there's like a little shiny brass part. The shiny brass part is where I sand it down. So I've been able to separate a bunch of these and save them so I can reuse the shafts in other carburetors. A lot of people really like this primary shaft for some reason. I think it belongs on a Ford. It's got like this funny looking squiggly thing, so I believe it belongs to a specific transmission. If any of you guys know what transmission this is supposed to go on, I'd love to know, because I think this comes off of a factory carburetor. Let's see, it's got a stamp, so it says 4780. So this is actually a base plate for a double pumper, an 800 CFM double pumper. So I'm going to scratch the numbers off a little bit, just because it's so dirty. Yeah, so this base plate's actually for 4780. So 4776 is a 600, 4777 is a 650, 4778 is a 750, 4779 is an 800, I think, and a 4780 is an 850, as far as I know. So the numbers right here on the corner of the base plate, that's what tells me. But what I find weird is that it uses a 173 and a 172 base plate or throttle blades, which tells me that it's a 750, 650, 750 base plate, not an 850. So that's kind of weird. I'm going to have to do a little bit of investigation on why the throttle blades are the size of a 750, but it's an 850 throttle plate. Unless the 850 and the 750 use the same throttle plate, which I don't think that's correct. I don't think they use the same throttle plate. So if one of you guys know, just go ahead and let me know. That would be very helpful. But this is a really old carburetor, because you can tell by the way the idle stop, it's a hex instead of like a standard like a round screw. You can tell that this arm, God knows what this thing's for. No idea. And the linkage for the double pumper assembly looks completely different from any of the modern stuff. The accelerator pump arms look the same except for the screws. The screws look a little bit different. And this one I removed and I reused for something else, I believe. But it's basically the same thing. And then this arm, I'm just missing the cam. So I've already tried to salvage this for other carburetors, because because I don't have the missing piece for this carburetor, I would actually have to go and break another base plate, try to line it up on an intake manifold as perfect as I can, grind off some excess, and then TIG weld it or braze it back together, hoping I get it straight. Which I probably won't, because if I tighten down these three, it's going to lift it up this way, and then if I tighten down that way, it's actually going to sit lower and it's not going to be straight. After, if I was able to weld it, I'd have issues with it being straight, so there's really no fixing it after it's broken. Holley 1850 electric choke tips. For the 1850, that's an 800 vacuum secondary, probably one of my favorite carburetors, because they're so cheap. 1850s are just so cheap. I have like 4 or 5 of them, because I've been able to pick them up for $30, $60, $80, $80 for like some newer, nicer ones. But really, like, they're really good if you know how to tune them. If you do the metering block modifications that I showed you guys earlier, if you guys modify the power valve channels, if you guys dial in the secondary metering plate, or if you guys take the stock metering plate and then you plug the 2 jet holes on the bottom of the metering plate, and then you drill out 2 holes for main jets, you'll be able to run regular jetting on your vacuum secondary, um, 1850, without having to switch over to a metering plate or a metering block. You can use your stock metering plate with a little bit of modification. I might do a video on it later just to show you guys how it works, but it's pretty neat. I have so many extra plates though. I find it a little bit useless to drill it out myself and install jets on my own, because if I need a different size, I probably already have the correct size. So I'll just pull this one off, put the correct one on, and then it'll be on my way. Or if I have these really small ones, you could always drill these out to the correct jet size as well. So you have to know what the size is. They don't really translate very well between this and the standard jets. So if you're talking about the choke assembly specifically, because you did say electric choke, I don't like electric chokes because they're just so finicky. So if you hook up your electric choke and you hook it up to your 12-volt ignition, you keep the key on. Even if you don't start it, you just keep the key on. Eventually, your electric choke should have enough heat built up from the ignition that'll open your choke up by itself. Eventually, after, I don't know what the time is, 10, 15 minutes, I don't know. It should be able to just completely open up. You touch the throttle and it'll just kick the idle down, and then you should be able to start it like if you didn't have a choke. I have a lot of issues with them sticking on the very last step. Let's see if I don't have anything with a choke on it right now. I tend to just rip off if it's not a manual choke, I won't put a choke on it. And I only have manual chokes on some cars, not even all the cars. It just depends if I need it or not. But the electric chokes, they have like the little plastic step, and I noticed that a lot of them, it won't hold itself up, especially after it gets a little bit worn. So the choke will open and it'll get stuck on the like the little ratcheting things. You'll turn it, you'll drive it, and you'll snap the throttle, and it'll go, and it's supposed to get stuck on the final step, but it'll get stuck on the second to the last step, and it'll keep your idle up. So we have issues thinking that we have a vacuum leak after the car's already warm. We've already driven it. We park it. We're gonna do some tuning, and it's idling high. So we're looking for a vacuum leak and stuff. We realize it's on the last step. We kick it up with our finger. We slap the throttle, and it'll re-engage. So I'm not much of an expert on the electric chokes. I don't mess with them enough to dial them 100% perfect. Typically from the factory, they should be already good to go. On the carburetor on the most recent one was a couple months ago, it was a 670 Street Avenger that we were setting up everything, and the last step was a choke, and that choke just kept sticking and sticking and sticking and sticking. We had so many issues, and we ended up just taking the choke off because it was a 383 Chevy, and it had about 15 degrees of advance at idle, at least, and during cranking it was around like 12 or 13 for cranking. And then we had the MSD ready to run distributor on it, so the timing curve was actually really aggressive, really good. And he was running 91 octane, and he was running like 10.5 to 1 compression ratio on aluminum heads. So there was no need for a choke, because even if it was cold, the engine had so much compression and aluminum heads, you can run a pretty good amount of timing at idle and without any fear of detonation, without fear of running it too lean. So you can go ahead and just remove the choke, and when you start it, you don't even have to like push the throttle. You just kind of like hold the throttle like just a tad, just to keep air flowing in there, and then you'll get air going. The engine will run for about 30 seconds, and then you let your foot off, and it should idle. It'll probably idle a little bit choppy or a little bit rough depending on how much timing you have. But if you can get it running without a choke, and it's a pretty good motor, then you should be able to be absolutely fine. You don't really need the choke. Eventually I'll do a video on choke assemblies, but for now I do want to stay away from chokes because there's just such a headache. One thing I did notice while I was talking is this tool. I believe I got this at Harbor Freight. So this tool that you use to turn the, because this tap is from Harbor Freight too. It came in a kit, so it galls up this the handle or the teeth where it's supposed to just sit here. So I'm having issues where, like this one, if I tighten it, maybe I should be able to get a better grip on it. Let's try that. But if not, I'm gonna have to buy a new one because it is so annoying trying to get this thing. Like when I tap inside the metering blocks and stuff, you really want to get a nice grip on it because you don't want to go crooked and you don't want to mess with it a lot. So if you're going through and you're tapping a hole and you keep messing up, you're gonna start going crooked because every time you mess up, you cock the tap as you're going into the metering block, and you start running into issues. So you really don't want to do that. I also want to make a tool where I can run the taps and I don't have to run these arms so far. Maybe even take this one and just trim the arms a little bit, so that way when I'm doing the main bodies for like the air bleeds, I'm not hitting the choke towers. So like something like this, if I'm trying to tap, look at that. I'm hitting the choke towers. I do want to buy the taps after I figure out exactly which taps I'm always going to be needing. They sell really long versions of these taps that you can use, and you can actually tap from up here. And they probably sell better tools too that you can use. I'd probably buy a bunch of these different ones and just make sure I just have one per tap and just crank it down so it doesn't slip. That'd probably be the best thing to do when I have a little bit more time to actually work on these carburetors. I don't custom tune carburetors for people, mainly because there's just so many variables in terms of what people need and what people want. And some people want a daily driver that they can race every single day. And some people want a daily driver that they don't want to ever race it. And so the people that want to race every day and be a daily driver, they need very specific carburetor. They have very specific carburetor demands, whereas somebody that doesn't really drive it probably wants something a little bit more considerate. How's your truck doing? It's running pretty good. Yeah, it's actually running really, really good. I'm building a carburetor for someone, ironically, after I just said I don't like to custom build for people. I'm running a carburetor. I'm building a carburetor, and I'm testing a 600 vacuum secondary 1850, just like we were talking about earlier. That one, I've done everything. I've drilled the air bleeds. I've done the idle feed restrictors. I've drilled out the power valve channel restrictors. I've already drilled out the secondary plate. I've grabbed one of the plates that I don't really use because it's too small, and I plugged in the holes and I drilled out, and so it has jets. The only thing I haven't been able to do is convert it to 4-corner idle, and I don't think I'm going to because there's too many base plate mods that you have to do in order to make the 4-corner idle work. Like for this one, I believe was a 4-corner idle carburetor. Maybe not. Yeah, no, this was not a 4-corner idle carburetor. So yeah, that's the only thing I haven't been able to do. Everything else is already modified, and I just made a trip with my truck today, and I drive it every day, but this was a pretty big trip, 60 miles one way, 60 miles back, and on the freeway it was probably running anywhere from the high 13s, low 14 to 1 on the freeway, which is not lean, not super lean, but not super rich, but not rich at all. It's actually running really good, and I got really good gas mileage. What do you know? Let's see. What did it say? What do you know? They make a tap handle that's a lot smaller than that you put in between your pointer and your middle finger, that has a chuck on the front that locks it down. I'm gonna have to look into the the different holders for the taps, because I need better equipment if I'm going to keep modifying these carburetors. I used to just want to just get rid of all of these, like get rid of all of these metering blocks and just get a bunch of these adjustable ones. But it's so easy. It's really so easy to modify these stock metering blocks. There's really no point, after you know how to modify them, there's really no point in buying these adjustable ones unless you are worried about weight. So this one weighs a couple ounces. I could probably balance it on my finger. You guys can see how quickly it responds. And versus this thing's significantly heavier. This thing's just probably, if I had to guess, this thing, the stock factory metering block is 2 or 3 times heavier than this adjustable metering block. Even if I grab a metering block from Barry Grant, so this is a Barry Grant metering block, the Barry Grant billet metering block is still a little bit lighter than the factory Holley metering block. And the adjustable metering block is even lighter than the billet aluminum one. So if I had to pick one for racing, if I wanted to keep weight off the front end, I'd switch over to adjustable metering blocks just because they're so light. I believe the aluminum body Holleys also have aluminum metering blocks, but I would have to double check and confirm that because I do not know. The electric choke. I'm just not a fan of electric chokes. Anything that I can't control at like on a whim is for me like kind of useless. Not in a sense that it doesn't work, but in the sense that if I really needed to do something and it doesn't do it, I'm more tempted to modify it to make it do what I want, if that makes sense. So, for example, if I leave the key on and I'm relying on the choke and I flood it, or if I'm not getting enough fuel in there, if you get the choke in a certain position where it's not open enough but it's not closed enough either, you either have to wait for it to fully open, you have to wait for it to fully close. But then you also have an issue where you let your carburetor sit, you go to the store, you let your carburetor sit, the choke cools down, it closes down, and then you try to start it and now you flood it because the choke closed back down because you wasted just enough time to get the choke to cool down to close it. And then you go to start it, and then it's closed, and you either have to wait for the thing to open, or you're going to try to just rev the heck out of it to try to get it to run. A lot of people seem to really like it, and if they can get it dialed in, their electric chokes, if they can get it running perfect however they want, and they don't have issues with like heat soak and stuff, perfect, more power to them. I prefer not to run the electric chokes. If I do anything, it'll be a mechanical choke. The 650 that I had up there that I brought down here had a mechanical choke. And especially for me that I do off-roading, a mechanical choke is actually very, very useful for when I'm off-camber situations, especially when I'm going downhill. So when you're going downhill, you have your carburetor, right? So this is the front of the carburetor. This is the metering block right here. So if you're going on a hill and you're going downhill, all the fuel is going to get all your fuel is going to accumulate right here, right? So if you're running normal, it's going to accumulate here. If you are off camber, it's going to accumulate like this. So you start exposing more of the metering block, but your metering block can't add more fuel because the float's already all the way to the top because of the way it's at. So you end up running lean when you're facing down. If you're actually going up and you're off camber up, you have the opposite problem. So now you have your fuel coming toward your metering block, and it actually starts going through the boosters. And if you get your level high enough, it'll go out through the vent tube, depending on how the float is set up. And in which case, a choke won't do anything for you. It'll just probably make things worse. But when you're specifically going downhill and you're worried about it leaning out and turning off on you, that's when you start pulling on the choke getting those AFRs back to a manageable level, and getting it to run the way you need it to. Also, if you adjust your choke correctly, your mechanical choke, you should be able, when you start pulling on the cable, it should also be increasing your RPMs at the same time. So if you're going downhill and you set it up so that it increases your RPMs by 400 or 500, not only do you have more control when you have either an automatic or a manual, both of them, they'll give you a little bit more control, so you don't have to try to divide between the brake and the clutch and accelerator. You only have to deal with the clutch and the brake instead. You could just keep kicking off the clutch as you see fit, instead of trying to do all three at the same time. For an automatic, same thing. You can just focus on just sitting on the brake. Well, I guess for an automatic it's a little bit different because you'll be sitting on the brake and the engine will want to continue moving forward when you're trying to slow down. So if I guess for an automatic, it really wouldn't work as well as a manual transmission for a manual choke. My truck is a manual, and when I've gone off-roading with it, I have been able to use a mechanical choke. When I switched over to the 625 Demon, I wasn't able to install the mechanical choke on the 625 because the way that the Demons were set up, I wasn't able to run the linkage on it. So I've been running without a choke ever since I switched to the Demon 625, because the 600 that's on it right now, I took the choke plate off because I've been messing with the Accelerator Pump squirters. So to say that I know anything about the electric chokes, I think would probably be an exaggeration. I don't know too much about them. In fact, my truck doesn't even have the circuit, doesn't have the wire that's supposed to feed the it doesn't have the wire that's supposed to feed the electric choke. It doesn't even have the wire. So even if I bought a brand new carburetor with an electric choke, I wouldn't be able to do anything with that choke. I have to switch it to manual, because unless I run a wire from my ignition switch to the choke, and then I'd have to learn about it. I just try to keep all my electronics very simple, very clean. I don't like to have issues with like things intermittently working and intermittently not. That's why I have such a big problem with the MSD box on my truck, because sometimes it'll run really well and then sometimes it won't. But that'll soon be fixed when my new box from JMS. I should be receiving a Smart Spark LS system. Smart Spark LS ignition system from JMS pretty soon, and I'll be doing a review on that one. I am very excited to be running the LS system on a JMS computer. Hopefully it runs better than it runs now, but we will find out on that one. But I am looking forward to it for sure. I'm going to try to remove the other bolt now that I'm here. What's wrong with your MSD box? You have to forgive me. My phone went on the fritz. I had to restart it. The MSD box, the MSD 6014 is pretty much the go-to when you're talking about a carburetor and LS system. Everybody really likes the MSD 6014. It has a lot of good features, like the boost retard for when you're going turbo, single step, two step. It'll give you brake boosting. It'll give you the ability to brake boost with the clutch pedal. It'll give you. It's supposed to adjust with vacuum. It has an internal 2.5 bar map sensor, I believe. It might be a 2 bar or 1 bar, or a 2. I think it's a 2.5 map sensor that's supposed to compensate ignition timing depending on load. So the problem, if the box is working 100%, I would be having no issues right now. But the issues with the MSD box is that the MSD box, because it's they claim that it's made in USA, but it's not. It's assembled in USA, but the actual circuit board is made in China. So the electronics inside of it are they're not that good. They're not very good electronics. So on my old MSD box, so this is technically my third MSD box. My very first MSD box lasted about a year. That MSD box never the internal map sensor never worked, so I was never able to adjust timing by vacuum. That was just something I couldn't do. All the other features worked fine, but I never bothered to wire them up completely. Even the tach signal on the MSD 6014 still worked pretty well. Then eventually I lost 4 cylinders on that box. I sent it back to MSD. MSD sent me a new system, and then the new system, the map sensor didn't work either. So that's 2 boxes that the map sensor didn't work, but the truck ran fine. Then I borrowed a third MSD computer just to see if it was just my setup. Maybe I did something wrong. And then this was a brand new unit. My friend bought it for his setup, and he loaned it to me. I plugged it into my computer, and it doesn't work. So that's 3 boxes that the internal map sensor doesn't work. And for somebody who dailies their truck several hundred miles a week, adjusting timing by vacuum is actually really important. So you can pull more torque and a little bit more MPG out on the highway. And if the MSD 6014 isn't allowing that adjustability, it's just something you have to tune into yourself, and you have to be more careful of when you accelerate, because you don't want to load up your system, your engine at too low of an RPM if you've got too much timing into it, because the computer isn't going to retard that timing. Unlike a mechanical distributor, where if you floor it, the distributor is actually going to turn off the vacuum advance, and you're going to go back to a safe timing level. Versus if you're driving on the freeway and you're putting in 40 degrees of timing at like 2,000 RPMs on the freeway, and you go to accelerate, or worst case scenario, you floor it. If you floor it with 40 degrees of timing, you're going to start causing damage. And so the purpose of that of the MSD 6014 adjustability on the vacuum, it's supposed to allow you to be able to just run your engine a lot better than you normally would if you didn't have that adjustability. So what I noticed about the 3 boxes is that on my first box, the sensor was 100% stuck, dead, didn't work. The map sensor always read 14.7. So no matter if it was hot, if it was cold, if it was just sitting there with the ignition off, ignition on, the MSD 6014 was always reading 14.7. So that indicates a bad sensor. So the second box that I got gave me a reading of up to about 6 HGs, basically 6 inches of vacuum. So if it was idling, it would just read 6 inches of vacuum. But I have a mechanical gauge in my truck that I always drive with, and that one was reading at idle 22 inches of vacuum. So if I slapped the throttle, I was able to see on the MSD laptop that the inches of vacuum dropped from 6 to 0 and then come back up to 6. So the sensor was actually maxing out at 6 inches. So then when I borrowed my friend, we had a different issue. That box didn't go anything less than 3, and it maxed out at 9. So I slapped the throttle at 0 while I'm watching the curve for the sensor, and it would drop down to 3, stay at 3, and then when vacuum climbed above 3, it would go above 3. When it reached 9 or higher, it got stuck at 9. So that box was bad as well. On all 3 boxes, I just ended up turning off the adjustability for vacuum because it wasn't going to do me any good. And I've been running without the vacuum, without the map sensors on the MSD 6014. I've been running them without the sensor for, it'll almost be 2 years. 2 years with no map adjustability. Do I miss it? Not that much, because I kind of just got used to it. I've gotten used to just putting lower timing tables just to keep the engine safe, and then just increase the timing as RPM goes up. Like anything after 3,000, I have it over 30 something degrees, and if it's below 3,000, I make sure it's in the mid 20s, so I don't have any kind of issues with detonation. And I haven't had any issues whatsoever. I do check my spark plugs, and I don't have any kind of detonation, even with like super lean mixes on the carburetor. Like I said, 14-to-1 and cruise and main jets. Power valve kicks in at 8.5 inches. So the power valve drops it down to about 12.5. And then when the secondaries open up, it keeps it around 12.5. So the carburetor is pretty much dialed in. It's just a matter of adding more timing to give it a little bit more oomph when I'm trying to daily drive it around town. But we'll see when the Smart Spark gets here. I should have an answer to my problems, but I don't know if the Smart Spark LS has vacuum adjustability, so I do have to look into that. Have you brought this up with MSD? Believe it or not, I did one time, and I actually recorded this entire phone call. I was put on hold for 35 minutes, and then they just hung up on me. I talked to the first tech. I said, hey, this is going on. This is my second box, blah, blah, blah. And they're like, okay, sorry about that. Let me get you someone that can help you. I was on the hold for 35 minutes, and they hung up on me. I called back, and then the second time that I called back, same day, nobody even answered the phone. A couple days after that, I called in and I said, hey, what's going on? I'm having this issue, blah, blah, blah. And they're like, okay, so it sounds like you have a bad box. And I said, well, how can I have a bad box if you guys just sent me this box? Supposedly this box is supposed to be fine. They said, well, we don't check the boxes, the ignition boxes, when we send out warranty items. So when I sent my original box to them, they don't open it. They don't check anything inside of it. All they do is they throw it in a pile of bad MSD boxes. They grab another one off the shelf and they give it to me. Actually, I'm going to show you guys something while I'm here on a rant. So I've got this. This is what MSD sent me after I complained about my first box. Instead of just sending me a repaired box that they knew was going to work, they just sent me the entire thing. Like, pretty much the entire thing, brand new, sealed. And I basically just pulled the box out, and they said keep the rest. So if I pull it out of the box, this is what came inside of it. So I have it's upside down. Look at that. I have a brand new harness and two brand new sub harnesses, all the mounting hardware, the MSD screwdriver right there, and the MSD flash drive for the software, and a brand new tuning cable. So all they basically did was, I complained, they said, okay, we'll fix it. They didn't fix it. They sent me a brand new unit, and then when I plugged in the brand new unit was messed up too. So basically, I ended up almost in the same predicament as I was before. So I'm kind of disappointed. I'm probably going to give away the Daytona Sensor Smart Spark LS system that is being given to me just to try it out. So we'll see if I switch back to the MSD 6014. Maybe I'll make a rant video on the 6014. I whenever I think about it, I get pretty mad. Pretty mad that they several months to get me my new MSD box, and I was pretty upset. That's why my friend let me borrow his, because I didn't have one. So I sent it to them, and my engine has been running fine as long as I have the timing table set up correctly. So we're just gonna have to see if I take it up with MSD, if they're just gonna send me another box, or what am I gonna do. So that's pretty annoying, and I'm pretty sad because I do recommend the box a lot, the MSD box. I recommend it a lot because it's a really, if it was working as it's supposed to, as it's intended, as it's designed to, with the quality that it's supposed to have, it would be an absolutely amazing box. I would definitely be recommending the box over factory fuel injection because you can add, with a carburetor, you can add so much timing to your LS versus the standard fuel injection. Not only that, you have insane amounts of tunability. What happened here? Oh, there we go. So basically, all they did was send you a brand new unit, and they didn't give a crap with the complaint that it was about and didn't try to fix the problem. Yeah, exactly, James. That's exactly what happened. Basically, that's exactly what it was. I complained. So I'm going to, well, I'll just tell you guys since we're already here. We're already on the subject. So my MSD box failed back in January of 2020, right? I called in January. They said, okay, no problem. Give us your email. We'll ship it out. We'll ship you a label. We'll send you a label and you ship it out to us. They never did. February comes around. I call them again. They're like, oh, we were supposed to send you a label. Looks like we haven't. Let me send you a label. They didn't send me a label. March comes around and they said, oh, yeah, we don't know what's going on, but you have to get a label so you can send it to us. I said, all right. So waited for my label so I can send it to them so I wouldn't have to pay shipping. So then my friend let me borrow his box, and I kept driving my truck, left it alone for about 2 or 3 months, and I called again. I said, hey, this is my claim number, this is that, and then my RMA. And they said, oh, yeah, you were supposed to receive a label. Let me get in contact with UPS, and UPS is supposed to send you a label. That never happened. And then I waited all the way until August to bring it up to them again because my truck was running fine. But then I had to give that box back. So I called them and I said, hey, forget about sending me a label. I'm just going to pay for the shipping to send this out to you guys. And then please just fix it. And they said, okay, here's our address. They were able to give me the address like right away. I paid like $15 or $10 for shipping. I sent the box myself on my dime, on my boxes, and I sent it to them. And then it took about 2 or 3 weeks. I didn't get a notice. I didn't get any kind of explanation letter. I didn't get I'm sorry. I didn't get anything. 3 weeks later, I get my new MSD 6014 unit in the mail. Open it up. Comes with everything. Brand new harness, brand new everything, which I don't really need, but I have them now, which is cool. Plug in the box, and the map sensor doesn't work again. But at least it's not dead 4 cylinders. So, I mean, it's a frustrating situation to be in, and especially the way MSD was kind of treating me, that they didn't really fix it. They didn't really intend to want to fix it. So then I kind of, from there forward, I've kind of been like toning down on recommending the box because if they're going to be treating me like that after I explicitly told them, hey, it's been months, you guys haven't been taking care of the issue, what's going on? And they really just don't care, honestly. At first I was giving them a chance, and this was pre-COVID, and then shortly it was after COVID. So after COVID, I gave them a little bit more leeway. But still, there was no reason to, if I started my claim in January, how did I finish my claim back in August or September or whenever I received the box? That's like 8 months. So it's absolutely insane. It's crazy. Absolutely crazy. So that's my beef with MSD. While I was waiting for my warranty exchange on my MSD 6014, I got in touch with the director of marketing of Daytona Sensors. His name's Adam Glow, and basically I made a deal with him, and he's going to send me a Daytona Sensor Smart Spark LS system, ignition system. And I'm going to go ahead and test that out. I'm going to unbox it on the channel. I'm going to install it in my truck, run it, go through all the tuning. And then with all the tuning involved in the box, I'm going to be able to either recommend it or if you guys should still get the MSD 6014. So as of right now, I'm refraining from making any videos on the MSD just to make sure I don't deter people from going carbureted just because the MSD box kind of sucks. If you guys keep your receipts and you make sure to check everything as soon as you receive your MSD 6014, then that'll be the best thing you can do to make sure that your vehicle runs as good as it should. I don't think it was designed to run as many miles as I put it through. So we're talking over 10,000 miles already in these last couple of years. Probably more than that, way more than that, way more than 10,000 miles. So for something that you daily, I don't think I'd want a system where you're afraid it'll go out any time, and your only fix is like let's say I try to go out to LS Fest out in Kentucky, and I'm in California, so that's several hours. That's several hours from California to Kentucky. I don't want to worry about driving through Arizona, driving through Tennessee, driving through Texas, and then my ignition box goes out. And my only fix is to buy another box from somewhere and install it, and then keep driving, and then hope the second one doesn't blow up. So I do want something a little bit more reliable when we're talking about daily drivers. What do we have? And what are you running right now, or what is there another box that you can get, or a company that sells a similar box? So right now I'm running the MSD 6014 that the MSD warranted for me. So that one came in the mail. I opened it up, installed it on my truck, and gave my box or my friend's box back to him. So he's running it on his system. He doesn't care about the map sensor because his is a 100% drag car, so he doesn't care about the map sensor, and it's not turbo, so he doesn't care about the map sensor. It's all NA. And then I'm running the warranted box that they gave me for four companies. Four companies. Or company. I don't know what you mean by that. So my truck is running the MSD 6014 with a custom timing map, or companies, yeah. So as far as I know, there's a few options that you guys can do instead of the MSD. The first one is the Smart Spark LS system, which I'll probably have in my hand sometime either this week or next week, and I'll be able to give you guys a general idea if that's a good idea or not. So there's that one. That seems to be pretty popular in the drag racing world. I don't know how popular that is in the daily driver world, but I will make sure to find out. Another is the Mega Squirt. So you can do a Mega Squirt system that controls ignition timing. There are several kits that you can buy. You build it yourself. It just takes a look at the map sensor, or not the map sensor, the crank trigger and the cam trigger. It's not as sophisticated, and it doesn't have all the features that like a typical ignition box does, but it is an option, and it is all DIY. So in case you have an issue with it, you can always fix it yourself. There's that. I've seen people where they can use a factory ECU, and that's probably the best thing you can do is if you can turn off the fuel injectors and make the factory ECU run the coils, just the coils based off cam timing and crank timing, then you're basically 100% set. I haven't done that myself, but I know it's possible because someone's already done it. If after I finish setting up my engine room, I am going to try to set up a stock harness, and I'm going to try to run a carbureted intake on the factory PCM. And if I can do that, then I'm going to save people so many headaches with trying to deal with MSD. If their box was working the way it was supposed to be working, we probably wouldn't even be having this conversation, because it'd probably be an extraordinary box. It'd be, for the money, it'd be like really, really good stuff, but it's not, and so that's why we're looking at different options. It's just kind of the name of the game. I know there's another box you can buy, but I'm not even familiar with the name or if it's any good, so I'm just going to refrain from any other data on that one. Sorry, I had to mess up on my phone. No, you're good. You're good. Typos are actually super easy. It's easy for me to just read it and respond, but if I had to type, even when I type in comments or in a response to some of you guys, sometimes I do make typos, because oftentimes I'll wake up in the morning and I'll have like 5 or 6 different comments, and I'll go through one, and then I'll answer another one, and I'll answer another one, and then I don't go back and proofread them, so I'll have like some pretty dumb errors as well. So I know exactly what you mean. So, and then until I go back and I respond a second time, I'll read my original one to remember what I said, and I'll notice all these errors. So it's just the name of the game. Um, I do want to know what you guys have been building. I don't know. Um, I know what like my general build is just like a daily driver, work truck, tow truck type of thing. But I'm wondering if the guys here in the chat room if they're more of a daily driver, if they're more of a race car, if they're trucks like mine. Like, what are you guys doing? I am curious to know. Or there are some of you guys here that are only here for carburetor stuff in general. Like Chevy Rel was in here earlier, and he's into all the carburetor stuff. I don't know if he's actually doing LS stuff, but I know for a fact he's doing carburetor stuff. So I know that. So in the meantime, I do have to go through and look at this. This base plate is super beat up, really bad. This is basically trash at this point. After I strip it down completely, take off all the nubs, take off the throttle blades, take off the throttle shafts. The rest is just garbage. The actual base plate is going to be garbage, and I'm probably just going to end up throwing it away because there's no way you can actually fix it. It's been broken for so long, and I don't have the correct piece for it that there's no use in actually fixing it. So I'll be using that for my extra builds, but I can't really. The shafts are no good. It's really just to place the throttle blades that I need because the shafts are so weird and different on this carburetor that I won't be able to make it work with the newer carburetors I already have. So that'll be a little bit odd. And then this one right here is for the electric choke, actually. This little arm right there that doesn't move the this is like what engages and disengages the stop on the electric choke. So for those of you that don't know, I do these live streams every Sunday, or I've been trying to every Sunday. So I've been posting one video lately because I haven't had enough time, but I've been able to post one video per week and then live streamed on Sundays. So if you guys want to get in touch with me personally, you can either wait for the live stream on Sundays or you can reach out to me on Instagram as well, because I do tend to respond there as well, regardless of what the questions are. If you guys just want to tell me something or share something with me, my inbox on my Instagram is always open. So you guys, I'm always down to hear what you guys are doing. I just got to finish taking this thing apart so I can start uncluttering. I sent a whole box of carburetor stuff to somebody that I know just because I just didn't want them anymore, and they were like really old stuff. Well, see, that's where I was telling you about a week or two ago when I subscribed. I have that 85K10. I have a brand new little bit hopped up small block 350, but I want to LS swap it as a daily. I mean, my friend that just blew up, he just blew up his 383, so it's a Vortec 350 block 4-bolt main. He bought it on those online engine rebuilders. So basically, they sell you a crate motor, and they've rebuilt it supposedly with like forged parts, and it's like super cheap. It was like $3,000 for like the whole long block. So, well, I guess I don't know, heads and block. So they were like these Pro Comp style or Speedmaster aluminum heads, and they came with forged pistons supposedly and forged rods. It was supposed to make 425 horsepower as it sits with the cam that they sent out. My friend, when he ordered his engine, he got it for a little, instead of like the standard stage, he got it with a more aggressive cam. So he was expecting somewhere in the 450 horsepower range. That 383, I want to say, only lasted about maybe 2 or 3 thousand miles before it finally blew up. And this was a fresh rebuilt 383. So when I went to his house, we pulled the pan off. We noticed that one of the rods was blue. We took it apart, and the bearings were just completely flat. I don't know exactly what ended up happening. Maybe some sort of error in the machine process, but we did have a spun bearing, and it was knocking, and he sent his engine back. Well, now they're telling him that they can't get parts to rebuild the motor, so they're waiting on getting a new shipment of parts. So now he's like, well, what if I just ask them for a refund and go LS? And the problem, if he would have gone LS from the beginning, he would have been in a lot better shape if he had listened to me from the beginning. Because I said, why spend $3,000 on a crate motor from a random engine supplier when you could just go an LS swap? So he didn't listen to me. He bought the 383. So when he got the 383, he bought a brand new Edelbrock RPM air gap intake. He brought a brand new Holley 670 Street Avenger. He bought a brand new set of small block Chevy headers and an accessory drive. Plus, he had his small block Chevy transmission rebuilt and everything, right? So it's a 700R4, same as 4L60. So his engine, fast forward, his engine blows up, and he says, well, what if I just go LS swap now? Well, now, because he's got so much money tied into the small block Chevy, and they're basically brand new parts. If he just goes and sells everything for about, let's say, half off, and buys all LS stuff, here in California, LS stuff is super expensive. To get something close to what he was making on the 383, he'd have to get a 6-liter, or at least a pretty good modified 5.3, or if he can get his hands on an LS1, or maybe bore out a 5.3 to an LS1 size, that'll work as well. So he was to get our hands on an LQ4 or an LQ9 or an LY6. We're looking at $1,500 and up. So we're looking at like almost $2,000 on an engine with unknown miles, and it probably won't even be complete. We'd have to go back to the junkyard and go grab some 5.3 stuff to get it all to work, because he wouldn't have a computer, and I don't even think it would come with a harness. So if he continues on wanting to go to an LS, the problem is that because he's got so much money tied into it, he's going to be really, really, really deep in the hole. And for clarification, this is a 74 C10 basically, but it's a GMC. So I think it's a GMC 1500. So it's like a 74. So the second issue is that if he puts a 6.0 in front of that 700R4, he's going to blow it up. So he's got to get a 4L80 to make it to a 6-liter. Or if he gets a hopped up small block Chevy, the 700R4 might hold up. It is a built trans, so maybe it'll hold up, but probably not. So then by the time he spends the money to build up a 500 horsepower LS, he is going to be so far in the hole, and I don't even know if he's gonna like going through the wiring harnesses, adding a fuse panel, adding an electric fuel pump, maybe having to change out the tank so he can put in a good sender, and it's really just more money, because he wants to go with the 6-liter. Going with the 5.3 is probably a different story, because you can just pick those up for $200-300 at the junkyard and slap them on, get them with intakes and everything, and it doesn't matter how many miles it's on it, because if it blows up, then you can just go to the junkyard, pick up another one. But he doesn't want to do that. Whatever engine he ends up getting, he wants to take it to the machine shop, take it apart, clean, put back together, new bearings and everything, get it good to go, because he says he wants it to last a long time. But um, that really doesn't help anybody. If the engine has good compression and it's not burning oil, then it's good. There's really not much else you can really do. If it's not blown up, it's not blown up. For if you were setting up your K10, I would really, if you're dead set on going LS, and you want to daily drive it, a 5.3 with either the stock truck intake, Trailblazer SS intake, or a dual plane carbureted intake manifold it's a pretty good bet. On my truck, because it is a 5.3, it kind of lacks a little bit in the torque department, but because I've re-geared my truck to 456 gears on 35s, and I've also got a 5-speed manual transmission, as well as a dual plane intake with a 2-inch spacer. I have plenty of torque in the 2,000 to 3,000 range with no problem. I've been able to pull very, very heavy trailers up really steep hills on a basically stock LS with long tube headers, not even a cam. And in fact, I don't even think a cam would increase the torque numbers unless I had like a BTR truck stage 1, and it'd probably increase my torque numbers a little bit, not even that much. So if you were to compare that to getting maybe a Vortec 350, so the Vortec 350s, they're going to run you the same amount, $200-300 at the junkyard. You can get a 4-bolt main block because nobody really wants them anymore. They're all over the junkyard. So you can get a 4-bolt main block, get yourself a set of aluminum Edelbrock heads or Brodix or Dart. I believe Dart also sells a good set of heads. For like $1,000, you can get a set of heads and slap them onto a Vortec with a 4-bolt main, and then just get yourself a dual plane intake and a carburetor, and you're done. Like everything else will work on your existing stuff, provided that your thing wasn't a 6-cylinder. If it was already a V8 truck, getting an aluminum head Vortec is probably a really good way to go, and it's probably fairly inexpensive versus getting an LS, well, specifically a carbureted LS, because a carbureted LS is probably twice the cost as a regular LS swap. So a regular LS swap, you can get everything for about $500, including the fuel pump and everything, and maybe $700 to get all the tuning done on it, and then you should be good to go. You should be 100% done. For an LS, because all the carb intakes are aftermarket, unless you can find them online, like on the LSX Carb Swaps Facebook page. They sell a lot of used like intakes. A lot of them are like Victor Jr., Super Victor, some of the dual planes. You can get them for a little bit cheaper on there, and then some people sell their entire setup complete, like for like $600, which isn't bad. Some for even cheaper. I saw one for $400, and it came with everything to convert it to a carburetor, including the carburetor, I think, which was really good. But if you pay retail, so you're gonna get carburetors are pretty cheap if you buy a used one. So let's say $100 for a carburetor, $400 for the MSD 6014, and then another $300 for the intake. That's $800 right there. Plus the cost of your engine, you're looking at $1,200. So that's kind of like where you're at, because you do have to add a bypass style regulator so you can get nice clean fuel going through it. You do want to add a fuel filter to it as well. So it really depends on what you plan to do with it in the future. I will say this, LSs, after driving them for 2 years now, carbureted LS specifically, you won't have a more fun time than with a carbureted LS. Carbureted LSs, they're fun because, number one, you tune everything yourself. Everything is done by you, unless you take it to like a specific tuner or something. But if you have a carbureted LS, everything is done by you. The second thing is that if there's an issue, you can 9 times out of 10 you can fix it yourself, unless you have an issue with the MSD box, in which case that's something else. The LS engines, their heads flow so well, even at low RPMs. It is absolutely insane. You're able to take a 600 Holley and just pull every single horsepower out of a 600 Holley. So it's just, if you're tuning a small block Chevy versus an LS on the same carbureted setup, it's two different worlds. Oh, definitely, I want a carbureted LS, but like I said, I can go to any junkyard around here, like pull apart and go find me a Chevy Express 2500 and pull out 6.0 LQ4, LQ9, or LY6. If you can get a 6.0 for cheap, and you get yourself the matching 4L80 transmission, then you're good to go. You're gonna have more than enough towing capacity for whatever you need, especially because it is a half-ton truck. I've been able, on my 5.3, I've been able to tow. Let's see, it was a flatbed trailer that the tongue weight's probably at least 1,000 pounds. Well, I don't know what the tongue weight was. I wish I measured the whole setup, but it was a full-size truck on a flatbed trailer on a 6-degree grade, and I was going up in fourth gear, and then I got stuck, and I had to switch to third because I got blocked by a semi. Oh, you live in Louisiana, and you already have a built 400. I don't know if the 400 is gonna hold up, to be honest with you. I know the 4L80 will, because it's got more capacity than the 400. I don't know if the turbo 350 and 400s will hold up. I would definitely talk to your trans guy. He'd know more about it, and just tell him more or less the amount of torque that you're planning to put out of it. LSs make, like as you guys know, substantial amounts of torque. With the correct gearing, the intake choice, and the carburetor, you can pull tons of torque even out of a 5.3. With the 5.3, you don't have to really worry about braking anything, but with the 6.0, you have to actually be very careful, because you can hop into the 500 horsepower range real easy, and you're going to be blowing up trannies if you are not careful, especially if you don't use a trans cooler. But if you do go carbureted LS, and that's what you want to do, you will not regret it, provided that you're able to do everything correctly and you successfully complete your swap. I got Buddy's Huesos 400 behind a 600 all day long at the drag strip, pushing 750 horse. Well, then if you've so if you've got a really well built 400 that can hang, I don't think any kind of factory 400 turbo 400 would be able to hang. But if you have a built 400 that'll be able to handle the torque, the stress from the 6-liter, and your trans guy is confident that it'll hold up, especially when you're pulling up a trailer, because that's usually when you blow them up. Because I don't think you're going to be drag racing the K10. And you could blow them up when you're off-roading, but it's unlikely unless you get stuck in between some really gnarly rocks. But yeah, if you do decide to go LS, you won't regret it. I know you won't, because I've been driving it for 2 years and I still don't regret it. Before the LS, I had a Mopar 318 inside my truck, and I know if I would have built up the 318, I would have been really disappointed, because to get a 318, a Mopar 318 5.2, to the level a 5.3 LS comes from the factory, like I'd be spending so much more money. And by the time I finished my swap, I got the R150 5-speed tranny with the 4-wheel drive, the Dana 44 in the front, the 48.8 in the back, the 456 gears, and then everything on my engine, just to get it pretty much bulletproof for everyday driving. I have not regretted it, not one bit. I've never regretted that it's a carbureted vehicle, because it just runs so smooth, and I've never regretted that the LS, that I went LS over a factory Dodge drivetrain, and I never wished I ever went fuel injection. The hassles that you have with carburetors, they're not too much different than the hassles you have when you're going fuel injected. So really, it's like pick your poison kind of thing. But if you go LS, you don't usually regret it. I do decide to go LS. Why I'm asking you all these questions, because I'm so worried about the ignition system. So I'm interested in what you find out about this new ignition system. Honestly, to tell you the truth, James, me too. I'm very I'm very worried that these companies that are coming out with these systems, they design them for people that only use their cars on the weekends, or they only use their cars at the drag strip, or they only use them to like cruise every once in a while, or they only take them out during the spring during show season. And I worry that because they're so used to that's the kind of people that buy this kind of stuff. People don't usually daily drive a carbureted LS. They don't put the extra amount of time and effort and money into setting up these systems. So I will find out exactly how well the Smart Spark LS system works, and if it works, and if it stands the test that I plan to put it through, then that's going to be my go-to system whenever I go to recommend. So if you want to hold off, you can probably get the engine. You can get your 6.0 and keep it in your garage. When you finally decide to do the swap, buy everything at once, and then do your swap. And if you decide not to, you're not going to lose money reselling that 6.0. So if you decide to do it, just pick yourself a motor, keep it, make sure it spins, make sure it wins, and keep an eye on when I finally get the chance to review the different ignition systems, and hopefully, even if the Daytona Sensors box doesn't work out, if I can get a box, if I can get the ignition system going on a factory PCM, that'll probably be the best thing, because nothing's going to be more reliable than a factory Chevy PCM on the LS, to be honest with you. You're probably not going to get better reliability than the OEM stuff. Well, that new system doesn't work out, I think I'm going to take you up on that other offer and try to downsize the factory ECU for a carburetor. Yeah, no, definitely. That is a very good option, and I'm going to be trying that myself as soon as I get my engine room all fixed up. I'm going to put concrete, I'm going to set up an engine stand, and that's where I'm going to run LSs, and that's where I'm going to have my test. I'm going to run a test harness and a test bench. Everything's going to be controlled, so whenever I buy a junkyard LS engine, I'll be able to take it home, put it on my engine stand, turn it on, and then run it maybe for half an hour and make sure everything's good before I decide to do something with it. But I think I'm going to go ahead and cut the live stream short today. James, if you want to reach out to me with any other questions, you can just go ahead and reach out to me at The Night Wrencher on Instagram, and I'd be happy to share any kind of info with you. So I'm going to go ahead and cut it short, mainly because my Wi-Fi is getting really spotty right now, and I can't really seem to do anything. So I'll see you guys all next week. Great to see you.